It's Stephen from Class Act, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to make the booklet that you put on one of the pages in the Heritage Kit layout. Now in your kit you're going to find all the supplies that you need for this, but the first thing you're going to need are the 2 manila envelopes that are included in your kit. And what we're going to start with is we're going to glue down this flap using score tape or two-sided tape on each envelope. Now the reason that I'm using score tape as opposed to just using a tape runner or just licking down the envelope part is this gives a much more secure closing. You could use your tape runner if you wish, if it's a good strong tape, but you don't want this coming open, so that's why I think the score tape's the best bet. So you're going to put score tape on each piece, and you might want to use your bone folder to varnish this to make sure it has a good stick. And since I don't have fingernails, I use a paper piercer to lift up the protective backing. Of course, you ladies with the nails, I'm sure you don't need a paper piercer for this. So just stick that down well, and we're going to do the same thing to the second envelope. Score tape is great. It is a very strong hold, especially when you're making something like a booklet. It's what I like to use most of the time. Okay, once we have both envelopes sealed, then we're going to grab our paper cutter. Let me clear some garbage out of our way. Take your paper cutter, and you're going to cut 1 inch from the edge of each envelope. Basically, I'm going to get rid of that fold. Okay, so I'm put it up here. I'm cutting off 1 inch. It's my 1 inch mark. Slice that off, and do the same to the second envelope. Now, you're going to need your scoreboard or a steel ruler and a bone folder or stylus or whatever to do this next part, because we're going to do some scoring. So, you're going to take your envelope, going to put it in your scoreboard or put it along your steel ruler, and you're going to score at 2 1/4 inches across your envelope. And do that for both pieces. Let's move this out of the way. And then fold each one along the score line and give it a good crease with your bone folder. And do it both ways. So there's one. And there's 2. Okay, so we have both envelopes looking like this. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put these two things together by attaching them at the smaller flaps back to back. So just turn it around, and you're going to glue the two of those together. Again, I would use the score tape, or if you've got a really good wet glue, that would work as well. Except some wet glues do tend, let's get in the shot here, do tend to make your paper warp. So you should be careful with that. Again, score tape I think is the best choice. Okay, varnish that. Oops. And take off our protective strips. And then we're just going to line these two pieces up. I do it like this, one on top of the other one, line them up at the seams, and give it a good rub. Got a little bit of glitter getting on some of this here from my craft mat from another project. Okay, So basically, this is your essential booklet. This is the foundation. Front cover, inside, these will become the tag holders. Back page, back cover. Okay, simple as that. So now, the next stage is to put in our coin envelopes. And in your kit, you're going to find you have 3 coin envelopes. But we need to do some alteration here. So again, we're going to get out our paper cutter. And we're going to cut these off at 4 inches, measuring from the bottom. So basically we're getting rid of the flap. So put your bottom of your coin envelope into your paper trimmer, open up the flap, oops, and cut it off. So it's now 4 inches long. And do that for all 3. Hope I'm in the shot. There we go. And our last envelope. Okay, so there's our 3 envelopes. Now, what we're going to do next is we're going to adhere each coin envelope to this flap. Again, score tape. Now, you want to make sure that the pocket part, the opening part, is facing outwards, out here, okay? Kind of beats the purpose for sticking a tag in there if you seal it up here. So, we're going to put score tape on all of these, but you want to put the score tape up about just a little over half because you don't want the tape hanging over the edge of this flap. Now you can measure this out, and I suppose I have a tendency to do things freehand, but if I was to measure it out, basically our tape shouldn't go any more than about 2.5 inches to 2 3/4 inches. And let's just double check to make sure my freehanding here is working fine. Yep, no problem. Okay. I put on 3 pieces just for the security sake. And again, here, eyeballing it. For the first time you do this, you might want to draw a little light pencil mark just to show where the edge of your tape needs to go. I've made these a few times, so I'm getting pretty good at eyeballing this. Now watch, after I've said that, I'll make a mistake, and then you'll all laugh at me. That's okay. Alright. Varnish everything down well. And take off the protective strips off of one of them. And your first envelope is going to go right up here along the top. So use the fold and the top edge as your guide. Make sure the pocket's facing this way. And stick it down. And yes, there's no sticky on the top, so that's good. So we take second envelope. We're going to do the same thing, except this time we're going to do it at the bottom edge, down here. Same thing, lining up the edges and the fold, and sticking it down well. Now the last one, we're just going to do on the opposite side of the flap, and we're going to center it. So this side, and let me turn it this way, see a little better. You just want to center it, eyeball it between the two. Line it up with the fold, and it doesn't have to be perfectly centered. Just close enough will do. Okay, so essentially we now have the foundation of our little booklet completed. Now what we need to do is to decorate it. Before we do that, and this is optional, we're going to use black ink. Now I'm using Distress ink, but any black ink will do. And you're just going to go all around the edges, the outside of the booklet, both inside and outside. Reason for this is the pieces we're going to use to cover this are going to leave a little bit of the envelope exposed, and this just gives it a worn vintage look. And since this is a heritage album, then I think that works fine. You can put as much on as you wish. I tend to just give it enough to give it an outline, but do make sure you do the insides as well as the outside. And this might get a little messy, but most of this, you know, is going to be covered up anyways, as you'll see, so it doesn't matter. We're just giving some dimension to the edges. As I said, any black ink will do. I prefer Tim Holtz's Distress ink. It's my ink of choice for most things, unless of course I have to be careful because it is water soluble. Therefore, if I'm going to put something else on it that is wet, it will cause this ink to run. But that's not our case for this project, so that's not going to matter. Okay, I've got all my edges inked. Oops, forgot the edge, forgot the outside here. Don't forget the outside. And there we go. Okay. For the next stage, we want to do a little bit of cutting here. So you're going to cut 3 pieces of black cardstock, and black cardstock's in your kit, that measure 5.75 inches or 5 3/4 inches by 6 inches. So that's, anyone know something? I think that I gave you the wrong measurements for this. Yep, I did. Don't know how that happened, but I did. So basically, we want a piece that's going to cover in here and leave a little bit of a border. So I'm just going to do a remeasurement here so I can do a recut. So really, it's 575. Yeah, 575 by 575. Okay. Now, depending on how much of a border you want, if you want to border it all, I would say that you should cut these pieces, well, 575, I like to leave about 1/8 of an inch of a border, so I'm going to cut 5 3/4 inches, or 5.75, depending on how you want to do this. Basically, with 1/8 of an inch off, comes down to 5 5/8. So I'm just going to adjust my pages here to 5 5/8. Let's just test this. Now, the next thing you want to do is cut 3 pieces of black cardstock so they measure 5 5/8 by 5 5/8, so a square. And once you have 3 of those cut, you're going to take your piece of Tim Holtz Distress Weathered Wood cardstock that's in your kit, and you're going to cut 3 pieces 5.5 inches by 5.5 inches. Next, we're going to take, again, our black ink, and we're going to go all the way around the edges of the stormy or of the weathered wood pieces. Again, give it that distressed look, which is very vintage heritage like. So we just do that all around each edge. Again, your choice as to how much ink you want to put on each piece. I don't like a lot. As I said, I like just enough to give it a shadow effect. I'm using a Tim Holtz 1-inch round ink applicator for this. I like that the best, but some of you might be using the finger daubers and those will work, or some of you might even be using the little brushes, and that's fine too. Even a makeup sponge, you can do this. If you get really bold, you can go direct from pad. Okay, once we have those inked up, then we're simply going to move these out of our way for a moment, bring this in, and we're going to put one of these, center it on each page. So on the cover, on the inside, and on the inside. We are not doing the back because that part's going to be adhered to our layout page. So again, same idea here. And for the sake of time, I'm just going to do one. I'm using the score tape again, putting it very close to the edge. Varnish it. And pull off the protective backing. Then we bring in our foundation of our booklet here, and we're simply going to center it and glue it down. Now, I don't know if you can see it or not, but I got some little specks of stuff that came off of my craft mat, which I probably should have wiped down before I started this process. It's basically left over some glitter and a little glue. So I just take, anytime that happens, one of these little rubbers. They're basically an eraser that takes away excess adhesive, and that cleans up things really well. I find this is really an indispensable tool for this kind of thing, and we sell them in the store. Okay, so then you're going to take one of your sheets of stormy weather, it's weathered wood, sorry, get the right name, that you've already inked, turn it over to its back side. You're going to do the same thing as you did with the black piece. You're going to put score tape along each of the edges. And center that on the black piece. I just eyeball it. Okay. And that's what you're going to do with the rest of the black pieces and the stormy weathered pieces on each of these two pieces that we have left. Then we'll come back and talk about how to do this center spot. Okay, so now we have all of our cover pieces on the inside, as you can see. So now we need to cover the flap. And to do that, you're going to need to cut two pieces of black cardstock that measure 3 7/8 this way by 5 5/8 this way. You need two pieces. And you're also going to need to cut two pieces of the Distress Stormy Sky paper, which is the slightly darker blue that's in your kit. And you're going to cut these at 3 6/8 by 5 1/2 inches. And as we did with the blue pieces at the beginning, we're going to take our Distress ink and we're just going to go all the way around the edges. Okay, and once we've done that to both pieces, then we're going to use our score tape, just as we did on the other pieces. We're going to adhere the black piece to this part and another black piece to this part. And you can see that what these do is cover up these edges of the coin envelopes and also reinforces that section. And then we're going to take our blue pieces, our Stormy Sky pieces, we're going to put score tape on them, and we're going to adhere them to the center of the black. So that's what I'm going to do, and I'll be back in a moment. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take a piece of the cardstock in your kit that is entitled, and I have to look up what it's entitled because I have forgotten. It is called Somewhere in Time, Timeless. And on that sheet you're going to find a whole lot of what look like mats. Pick one that you can cut down to 5 1/8 inches by 5 1/8 inches, so into a square. And then once you have that cut out, you can take it and put your score tape all the way around the edges like we've done before, and also make sure that you blacken the edges with your black ink. And this is going to serve as the cover of our little booklet. And so we take off the backing on the score tape, and you can pick any one of the designs that happen to be on that sheet. It doesn't really matter. That's up to you, your personal preference. And we're going to adhere it to the center of the cover. Just like that. Now, you're also going to find in your kit a chipboard piece that says Family Heritage. And this is going to go on the cover of our booklet as well. But before we do that, we need to colorize it. And what I'm using is 3D stamp paint that we sell in the store. The particular color that I have chosen is light blue metallic because it goes with the paper. If you've never used this product before, this is an excellent product. It's got a little bit of a shimmer in the paint, and it dries very, very quickly. You don't need very much. So I use a piece of scratch paper down in front of me, and I keep a baby wipe close by. And I just basically scoop a little bit out onto this piece of paper. Like I said, that's about all you need. Put the excess back into the jar, and this is where the baby wipe comes in. Because this stuff dries very quickly, you want to get it off of whatever it has touched as fast as you can. You can use this with your rubber stamps, but again, if you're going to use it with your rubber stamps, you're going to have to make sure you wipe it off your rubber stamps very quickly. So I've got my metallic blue here, and I've got my little chipboard design here. And the best way to apply it, I find, you could use a paintbrush if you wish, but I just use a cheap makeup applicator from the dollar store, and you just dab it into the ink, and away you go. And I don't know if the camera's picking this up or not, but you can see that this actually has a little bit of glitter to it, which I kind of like. Gives a little bit of bling to your project. And you can see I'm working relatively fast here because this paint dries very quickly, which is a good thing when you're doing something like this, especially in a workshop setting. You don't want to be sitting around all day waiting for this to dry. Okay. And there I have it. It's all done. Not quite completely dry yet, but we'll give it a few minutes and it will. So we'll just put that to the side, try and take some of this off of my hands with the baby wipe, and clean up then if you've used a piece of scratch paper and just a makeup sponge. Just roll everything right up and toss it away. Now you're going to want to adhere this to the front of your album, whichever way you prefer. I like things on an angle, so I'm going to do it on an angle. And the best way to glue this down is basically with a wet glue. I'm using this particular one, but any white glue will work, especially one that dries clear. And you're just going to put a little bit of it everywhere. A little thin bead around the edges. Hope I'm in the shot. Move that up. You don't need a lot of glue because this is a very light piece, but I do want to stick, so okay, that should do me fine. Put my book back in, turn this over, lay it down, and let it dry. Now if you get a little bit of the glue squishing out from underneath it in parts, that's okay because it's white glue. You can wipe up the excess with a baby wipe if you wish, or just let it go and it'll dry clear, and no worries there. Okay, so our next thing is to cut the big tag that's going to go into this large pocket that we created when we cut off the edge of the envelope. So how do we do that? Well, what you need is to go back to that piece of the Bo Bunny paper that's in your kit that was entitled Somewhere in Time, and you're going to, actually it's the piece that says Somewhere in Time, Timeless, which is what we cut this piece out of, the book cover piece. And you're just going to find another card on there that's big enough that you can cut to 5 1/4 inches by 6 1/4 inches. So 5 1/4 inches by 6 1/4 inches. Okay, so you just cut that off. And again, you're going to do our little inking technique. Now, some of you might not like the inking technique, and that's fine. This is optional, strictly up to you. I do this on a lot of my projects because I like the fact that it gives depth to my pages. In this particular case, since we're doing a heritage layout, I think it adds a little bit of vintage style to it. One thing I just forgot to do before I inked it, though, is to corner round one end of it. So you're going to decide which end is going to stick out, because this is going to be longer than your booklet. So just use your corner rounder, and then go ahead and ink around the edges. Okay, so this is going to fit right inside this pocket, but as I said, it will hang out a little bit, and that's we want to hang out a little bit, because then we're going to go to the little package of 3D embellishments, Life's Little Occasions, the family history set, and you're going to pick one of these that you like. Now, I suggest the one that you might want to use for this is Days Gone By, this one down here, but any of them pretty much will work. So if you've never used these kind of things before, they're very, very simple. Just pull them out of the package, peel it off the acetate sheet, and they're sticky already. And then for this one, I'm just going to line it up, sort of center it at the top of this card, stick it down, and there we go. Now, this card can serve as a photo mat, both sides, or a piece of journaling, or whatever you want to do with it. So that just slides in there. So the next thing we have to do is create the tags that are going to go in our 3 little pockets that we created with the coin envelopes in here. So again, what you need to do is go to your cardstock sheets, and on one of the sheets you're going to find some little mats, and you can pick out 3 that you like and just cut them out. Doesn't matter which 3, and they're all kind of double-sided. And you want to cut them so that they measure, well, let me see, forgot what the measurement was, because they got to fit into the pocket. So they need to be, you can leave the length that they come in. You don't have to shorten that, which is 4 inches, which is fine. But what you want to do is cut these down to 2 3/8 inches wide, so they'll fit into the envelopes. I'll just show you here. So they fit right down inside there. Now, we're going to take our corner rounder for each one of these, or you could use a decorative corner punch, whatever you like. Just going to make them look a little more tag-like here by clipping off the corners. Again, we're going to go to our ink, and we're just going to ink all the way around the outside of each tag. Now, I didn't do it with this project, but there's nothing saying that you can't do this. If you wanted to make this even more tag-like in its appearance, you could go ahead and simply punch a hole in the top of each tag and tie a ribbon or put a piece of washi tape or a pole of some sort there and slip that into the holders. It's up to you what you want to do. I'm leaving them without that because I'm thinking of using these more or less to put pictures on or journaling, and I don't want to have a lot of bulk in my pages with this, so I'm basically not adding any kind of ribbon or anything like that to it, but you could do so if you wish. So after you've got each of the tags blackened all the way around the edges, then you can just take them and they fit right into each individual little coin envelope. Now, the reason I made each one an individual one is to keep them from sliding into each other. If this was all one big pocket, which you could make it that way, they would all tend to, as time goes by, all start to kind of drop down together and be one big lump. This keeps them each separate. And there we have it. So there's our little booklet, all ready to go. Put a picture here, picture here, picture here, picture here. There could be a picture on both sides of this part. You've got your tags for more pictures, for journaling, whichever way you want to set it up. But it's nice and compact and fits on your layout very neatly.